Retro Hangover, supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Ashton Ruby, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Studstill Smash the Milkman, Katie Quigg, Paul Romalo, Raging Demon, JC, Megan Caruso, Mast Keaton, Andrew LaGuori, Ozzy Garcia, The Retro Vixen, Adam from The Good, the Bad, the Backlog, Thunderdome Gaming Society, Diskai Mara, Jenny E, Rick Firestone, Parallax Puddles, Soha, Keith Gasper, Dave Jackson, Eric Guess, Kayla Jackson, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands podcast, Ash Event, Alan Bingham, Storm Beagle, Ryan Player 1, and Mike the Rep from Backbreaker Gaming. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to the most recent episode of Retro Hangover.
Retro and classic gamers, welcome to the podcast where we positively promote popful, pretentious preambles, perniciously per proclivity. This is Retro Hangover. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, with special guest Bill Barber from the Gaming and Collecting Podcast. And, as always, your host, Shane, male, popful, dick, dragon! Malkoski! Gah!
I appreciated the James Hetfield there at the end. The Dick Dragon. Nah, it was very nice.
Yes. If there's nothing I was intentionally trying to go for a James Hetfield sound. Remind me who that is again.
Oh my God, you have failed me. The lead singer and rhythm guitarist of Metallica.
I know. I'm just fucking with you. Was it when I said "ga"?
Yeah. He always has those inflections at the end of it's like become a meme. Or, like yeah.
He's very dramatic and it's kind of, but he can still sing. So.
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that was our desire.
Fuel, fire, fire. This is a great. This is fantastic. This is a good start to the episode. Has probably nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but I do want to point out this is probably one of my more favorite pretentious preambles. I like the Pernicious Proclivities. I feel like that's a fantastic name for something. I don't know, like an indie rock album.
I like it. It has to be a death metal indie rock album, but you have like a tea set on the cover, so everyone thinks it's like this really relaxing album.
Oh yeah,
you just give it to your grandmother or your mom or something like that for Mother's Day. It's like, here's the smooth sounds of Pernicious Proclivities. Like, ooh.
Followed by relentless blast beats. I love it.
Yes. But James Hetfield. Just James Hetfield. Mixed in.
Listen, I love Hetfield, Papa Het, as the kids call him, as much as the next person, but I don't think Metallica has it in them to be brutal blast beat deathcore. I think they're way past that at this point.
I don't think Lars could do it. He can barely play his own stuff.
No, that's a good point.
They'd be too angry about someone downloading their music or something.
Yeah.
Now I'm old.
I say, hell yeah, let's bring back the Napster debate. Everybody remember that one?
Yeah, that's relevant.
Hey,
so topical. Many people are going to appreciate that one.
It made it so Metallica is the easiest band to pirate ever.
Exactly. True. Yar. Fucking Hetfield. Anyway, welcome to Retro Hangover. Thanks for coming back on the show, Bill. The last time we saw you, we were all alone in the dark.
We were.
We're not so alone in the dark this time.
Oh, God, that's right. That is the last time you were here. Man.
You know what the funniest part about that is? During that episode, I had just moved into my sister's house. And during this one, I have just recently moved into my own house. So
what we're saying is we need to schedule for you for another episode so you can move into another house.
I hope not. I've got a mortgage now.
Bill will never be back on the show. He's like, nope, I'm not moving again.
Not jinxing this.
I won't do it.
It's been raining up here for like 2 months now, like straight, and like it literally rained every day I was moving. That was a blast.
Ugh. That sucks, man.
Nothing like moving 3,000 video games in the pouring rain.
Ugh. Just hope they don't get like mold and shit. Like
they were in like bags and like Tupperware and shit. I was like not chancing that at all.
One drop gets on there and you look at your copy of Popful Mail and all of a sudden you start seeing like little spots all over it and they're like black and you're like, no.
Yeah. I don't even want to imagine that.
No. That's where you get EverDrives, everybody. Get EverDrives. Way to go.
Well, it's not like it's been that much better around here. We've been, I have been getting a heat advisory warning on my phone every evening for the past like week or two. They're just like, yo, don't go outside ever for any reason.
No, it's bad. But now we're talking about the weather. So I think we should move on to other things like video games, because this is a video game podcast. And as we are wont to do, we start out talking about the video games we've been playing. And since Bill is our guest, he gets to go first. So, Bill, what game have you been playing lately?
Well, other than Popful Mail, I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 16, and I have a couple podcast games I've been working on. I've been playing a lot of the Inuyasha game for PS2 and Uncharted Golden Abyss. That's been my main 3 I've been kind of alternating through for like the last like month or so.
Giving the Vita some time, huh? Giving it some love.
Well, Persona 4 is on everything now, so I got to play something on it.
Guess. Vita means life.
Literally.
It does.
Play Drive Girls, that fighting game where the girls are motorcycles.
Wait, what?
Well, I'm immediately sold.
Please elaborate.
There's a really shitty anime like beat 'em up fighting game where like you play as these like anime girls, but they're like motorcycles. It's called Drive Girls. It's really bad.
I want to play this.
Are they like, okay, so are they like Transformers where they look like anime waifus and then they turn into motorcycles? Or like how does that work?
They're just kind of bikes, and then I only played it for like 3 seconds and was like, this is garbage.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Or is it just like literally like a Kawasaki with boobs? Like I'm trying to figure this out.
Kind of, yes.
Great. All right. I'm in.
It wasn't good. It was very PlayStation Vita. That's all I'll say about it.
Gee, I wonder why it died.
Yeah.
But it means
the
life.
Game's like anime booby bicycle fighting. I don't know. I mean, that's just a massive audience right there.
Hey.
Isn't that like 50% of his library?
Oh, they turn into cars too. That was the other thing.
Okay.
Oh, great. Well, we got trying to get as many of those very niche demographics as possible.
That's like 50% of the Vita's library too, isn't it? Like games like that.
Oh yeah. Like, so when the Vita was basically being discontinued, I went on like this like 12-hour road trip across Massachusetts just to like every GameStop I could find and just like cleaned out their clearance Vita sections. It was worth it at the time.
That's smart. Oh, I mean, that was smart at the time. Now it's ugh.
Yeah.
You ain't getting it cheap anymore. What about yourself, Shane? What have you been up to?
I don't know. My update right now is pretty boring. I'm going to be honest. I really have not been playing much. We've been so busy the past few weeks that I'm lucky if I can even fit time in to play the games that we're supposed to talk about on this show. I put some time into Popful Mail. Even though it's like a 6-hour game, I didn't finish it, and I will talk about why later.
Yep.
So that basically, and I've still been keeping up with Honkai Star Rail. I'm actually really enjoying that. So it's a pretty high quality turn-based JRPG experience that you can basically play for no money. So that's nice. I mean, full disclosure, I've put a little bit of money into it, but not much. So that, and actually, I think probably the next time we record, I imagine that this will be part of my what have I been playing, but I may or may not have just gotten PC Game Pass finally.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, the motivator for it was, so I haven't talked about this on the show like at all, but I guess now it's mostly official. There's still some paperwork and whatnot, but my wife and I have adopted a son. And so he is 9 years old. He is super into Minecraft, as 9-year-olds are. And So that kind of motivated me to kind of revisit Minecraft, because I haven't touched Minecraft in, I don't even, like, at least 10 years or something. I realized that the Bedrock edition, I guess, is like kind of the go-to now. And I was going to buy it. It's like $30 on the Microsoft store. But then I realized I could just play it with Game Pass for free. So I was like, well, I guess now's the time. I'm finally just going to dive in. So signed up for Game Pass, and I also got the Realms Plus subscription, which allows me to have my own private server. So I've set that up, so now we can play together and our stuff can persist on a private server. So
I'm excited.
Yeah, so I expect that there will be more Minecraft in my future. And hey, if you or the boys want to jump in sometime, I can hook you up with that server info if you want to jump in and play.
Oh, definitely. At least I know my oldest son will be definitely down for it, because he loves to play some Minecraft.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of it for me, man. I haven't really been doing a whole lot lately. Just a lot of real life stuff.
That's all awesome.
I don't know. What about you? Hopefully you've been filling in for where I've been lacking.
That's the funny thing, is that I know that there is a game that we are going to be talking about in October. That is a very long game. So I'm doing everything I can to get ahead of the games we need to play for future episodes. So I've mostly been doing that. I've been doing okay, I hope.
Wait,
I hope.
You started without me? Damn it.
No, I have not.
Oh, okay.
I have not. So if you're a fan of the show and you want to know what he means by that, you know what he means by that. But if you want to know, hey, we have plenty in the backlog in our streams. You can find out if you're keen enough. But I will say this, I did play a smattering of Capcom versus SNK2 on my PS3, because I have the PS2 version of that downloaded on there. And I'll say this, the DualShock 3 is a terrible controller for fighting games. It is not good.
It's not great.
I did not like it. No, it's not great at all. It's pretty fucking terrible, actually. And see, this is what happens when you get used to the Sega Saturn controller for fighting games. You can never, ever go back. What's weird is, Bill, I feel like we've talked about controllers before. I don't know where I'm getting this feeling from.
We did. One of them was a Patrick Star controller, I think. I mean.
Oh, yes.
So the N64, that's basically what that is.
It's a good controller.
I think you can hear my sister screaming in the background somewhere.
By the way, I was on an episode of Gaming Collecting with Bill about gaming controllers, if you want to go check that out. But yeah, DualShock 3, not a great controller for fighting games. I'll say that. I did manage to win somehow, but man, I went with my mains and somehow I pulled it off with Cammy, which I had Ken, Athena, and Cammy. And I'll have to say this too. It's kind of sad when you look at some of these character sprites and you can tell that they're from Street Fighter Alpha 2 or Darkstalkers. Morgan from Darkstalkers is in Capcom versus SNK2, obviously. They're still using the same sprite from either the PlayStation or Saturn game. It's really fucking displacing. It's not good. But the gameplay's solid. I just don't know what the hell they were thinking. It looks bad. Great playing game, just terrible controller. But yeah, I try to spice it up a little bit there, Shane, just because that's about it outside of just games for the show.
All right, well, there you have it, I guess.
Hey.
Well, I suppose that brings our waffling section to a conclusion. So I would imagine we probably ought to talk about the mail what pops. So Chris, would you like to give the fine people at home a little brief history on Popful Mail?
As we've talked about in the past, Sega could never truly figure out their home market in Japan. Both the Master System and Mega Drive were mostly duds. This didn't mean that Sega was content with rolling over and dying, or just appealing to the West. They could make several efforts to garner an audience that had mostly neglected their products in favor of NECs and Nintendos. So, Sometime in 1993, Sega partnered with the somewhat prominent developer Nihon Falcom. Nihon Falcom had been known in Japan since the earliest days of gaming in that region, going back to the days of the PC-88, and was responsible for popular titles such as Dragon Slayer, Xanadu, and Ys. Needless to say, forming a partnership with a developer known for making games in or adjacent to the RPG genre was necessary for Sega, as the Mega Drive did not have many quality entries and was unquestionably the most popular type of game in Japan. So, Sega Falcom was formed, and they set out to bring a game to the Mega CD. Instead of doing something original, Sega Falcom opted to remake a game that Falcom originally made for the PC-88 in 1991 called Popful Mail, a 2D side-scrolling action-adventure game that was similar to Ys 3 and Xanadu. While there were also versions for the more powerful PC-98 and even a release on the PC Engine CD, Sega Falcom decided that they would completely rework the game from the ground up, changing the gameplay while keeping the basic concept intact. Sega Falcom wanted to go even further than that, and make this remake a complete overhaul of the characters and settings, making it a part of the Sonic the Hedgehog series. The game would be called Sister Sonic, and would change Mail, the game's protagonist, into a flirtatious, smack-talking female family member of Sonic himself. However, fans of Popful Mail started a mail campaign flooded with negative feedback to keep the setting more faithful to the original PC-88 release. The campaign worked, and Popful Mail was released in Japan on April 1st, 1994 for the Mega CD to rather tepid reviews and sales. With the intent of making the game into a member of the Sonic franchise defeated, so was the opportunity for Sega to release the game outside of Japan. Sister Sonic was made with international appeal in mind, so it was clear that Sega Falcom did not believe the game would find an audience in the West in its original concept. This left Working Designs, who by this point had become somewhat of a darling in the niche North American gaming community with its release of Lunar: The Silver Star in 1993, decided to obtain the rights and localize the game overseas. The full-scale localization would include making enemies more difficult, compressing sound quality to allow for more voice acting, and change cutscenes so that the voices would be in sync with the characters' mouths. They would accomplish the full localization in 4 short months. Popful Mail would be released for the Sega CD in North America on February 23rd, 1995. Unlike Japan, it was received very positively by US critics, with many enjoying the game's characters, voice acting, and animation. Like Japan, however, the game didn't sell very well, as it was a game in somewhat of a niche genre on a niche console at the very end of its life. And that's really it for the story of Popful Mail. Sega Falcom shortly dissolved after release of the game, meaning that Popful Mail was the merger's only release. The Sega CD version has never been ported to anything as of the time of this recording, even with the game having a small and dedicated fan base, which has driven the price of a physical copy on the secondhand market into the stratosphere. And that is your brief history of Popful Mail.
All right. Thank you, Chris, for that brief history. And, it is wild to me that they wanted to turn this into some weird Sonic spinoff.
Yeah.
That would have been a disaster. I've been talking briefly about this with Bill, I think in the Discord servers. I'm like, you know what? We should have given Sega a chance. They weren't really known for making mistakes in the mid 90s. I think this probably could have worked. Sega was untouchable. They were geniuses. They did no wrong at this time. We really need to think about this.
What's funny is I'm pretty sure this concept has been turned into a fanfic probably at this point by some
for sure
crazy fans at this point.
They're not crazy. They're just horny.
Break out the bonk sticks. The thing is the name Sister Sonic, all I can think of is just a female Sonic the Hedgehog type character in a nun outfit, doing some gun kata John Woo ass Like,
oh my God.
Yeah, it's Bayonetta.
It's like female Shadow.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Please no.
Like there's just for no reason.
Please,
there's just doves in the background because,
I want Sister Sonic now. I want it. I need this. I need a nun Sonic with dual pistols. Ooh.
I'm just saying, I think it would go over pretty well.
I'm so down.
Apparently that's a huge piece of lost media too, because apparently there was a prototype that never was shown to the light of day.
I'm sure for all the poorest of reasons, because this would have been a smash success.
I'm honestly surprised there's never been a ROM hack of Popful Mail that's actually tried to make that a thing at this point.
Oh, I want it. I want it so bad.
All right, now for the inevitable next Sonic movie, I want there to be a Sister Sonic cameo in there somewhere. Just the deepest cut reference possible.
I mean, he did have a sister in that one really shitty cartoon from the 90s.
Ah, that's true. Yeah.
Voiced by Jaleel White. All of them were voiced by Jaleel White.
Jaleel White is Sonic, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thankfully, none of our personal experiences were with Sister Sonic. Maybe not thankfully. Anyway, let's get to the personal experiences here. Bill, I'm going to let you go last here because I think you've told me you've actually played it in the past, where I don't think either myself or Shane have. So, Shane, how about you say your personal experiences with Popful Mail?
I had none. There you go.
Oh,
now, I mean, like I had no idea this game even existed until we started talking about it. Something having to do with the show. I'm trying to remember because I think actually I was the one that brought it up of like, hey, we should do an episode on this because it looks fun.
Yeah,
This
was your idea.
It was, but I don't remember how I even found out about it. I think I might have just been like, I don't know, trolling through some list of video games or something and was like, oh, this actually looks cool. I've never heard of it. I don't know. At any rate, I didn't even know this was a thing. Also, who owned a Sega CD? I don't know anybody who did. So,
you know me.
Well, yeah, okay. Now, but back when this was relevant, nobody had a Sega CD that I knew of anyway. So, I did not know this was a thing whatsoever, or that it's a remake of an even older game. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I didn't really know about the older games. And I mean, there's one for the Super Famicom as well.
Yeah.
That never came out in the United States. So there's all sorts of versions of this game. This is the only one that came over here. For me, this is the first time I played this game. I actually sat down and played it. Like I've opened it up and I've ran it a little bit in the past, but this is one of those working designs games that has always eluded me. I knew about it back in the day because I had a Sega CD, Sega CDX. I had Vi, I had Lunar, I had Lunar 2. For some reason, I just never went after this game. And I was a big Working Designs fan. I tried to get as many Working Designs games as possible when they were available and when I could find them. I didn't have all of them, and this is one of the ones I did not have. And I don't know why I stayed away from it, because I can always remember wanting to play it. Maybe it's because I heard it was not a traditional RPG. And I was more into trying to find games that were in the traditional RPG vein. And this is an action game. This is a 2D scrolling action game with very light RPG elements. In fact, it has even less than Final Fantasy 16, if you can believe that. So, this is a game that I finally got to, and I'm happy I was able to play it for this episode, kind of. And I'm happy I was able to close that gap. But yeah, this is a game I'd always heard of, and just, I don't know. The thing that really chaps my ass too is, like, during the pandemic, like right after it had gone on for a little bit and game prices really began to spike, one of our local game stores had this for sale, and they had not kept up with the price increases. So when this game originally got to that store, the game was worth $180. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Chris, why would you buy a game for $180? That's stupid. And yes, you are correct. However, I did end up buying a game for $180, and that was Shining Force CD, because they also had that game there, because I missed out on Popful Mail. To this day, I still am pissed
that I didn't do because they have a layaway special where you put 25% down. You can pay over the course of 3 months and you can get it. I'm pissed I didn't get it earlier because it's a $180 game and like only idiots buy those like me. I wish I grabbed it because what is it at now, Bill?
It's getting close to it. Last I checked, it was up to 400.
Yeah. So I'm very upset. Needless to say.
Oh, 518 now.
Hooray. So I guess that is a good segue into you, Bill, because you have a physical copy of this game.
I do.
What is your personal experience with this?
So personal experience is a little bit of a stretch because I mean it was like 5 years ago, but that's still, I did play it before like we had discussed doing this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like my first time hearing about this game is actually kind of hilarious. This was like back when I was in like middle school and I was looking up like weird Sonic trivia because I was really into Sonic back in the day, and I found the article on Sister Sonic and I was like, what is Popful Mail? And I like read about it. I was like, oh, that's weird. I don't know what a Sega CD is. And I kind of like brushed it off at the time. Then years later, of course, I get into game collecting and like it becomes my main hobby in life. And I learn more about working designs. I become a massive Lunar fan and I decide I need to get Popful Mail at some point. And unfortunately, Sega CD games like Saturn games are almost impossible to find nowadays. And if you do find them, they're absurdly expensive for the most part. So going to like where I finally did actually find my copy of Popful Mail, me and my sister Alex were actually hanging out for a weekend when she had initially moved away. And we were going to go game hunting just as like a sibling thing. And the first game store we go to, I remember walking in, I had just gotten there like the first night I was visiting. And we walked in just to see. I wasn't expecting to buy anything major. I walk up to the counter, look down at the glass, and I just see Popful Mail, $1.99. And I just looked at it and went, I'm never going to see this again. So I straight up looked into my wallet and was like, this is all my money I have. Oh, well. And I bought it because I was never going to see that price again, like $1.99.
Yeah.
No.
And I bought it. And the funniest part was my Sega CD obviously wasn't with me at the time, so I couldn't even test the thing. And it kind of sat around for the entire trip while I was visiting until I could get home and actually play it. And the funny part is I literally live like an hour, like 15 minutes away from that same store now, which is even funnier. But yeah, that was my experience. Then of course I played it and I beat it after I bought it. And this was around 2019, I want to say. And I finished it and I kind of put it down. I enjoyed my time playing it, but it didn't leave the same impact on me that like Lunar 2 did. And it kind of just went on the shelf as like, this is another grail of my collection that I guess I'll talk about every now and then. And that was kind of really about it.
Yeah. And here we are.
Well, you're welcome. That investment paid off because now you're a guest on the Retro Hangover podcast. Yes.
I think the funny part is like, I think you asked me to join because I had posted a picture in the Discord server of like my stupid Sega CD 32X monster with Popful Mail in the background, and you had messaged me after asking about it, which was kind of funny.
Damn right. How many people go out of the way to get games like that, like we do?
Oh, just crazy people like us.
Exactly. Like there's something wrong with us.
Hey, don't loop me into that.
I'll try not to.
Okay. Thank you.
You sell your games.
Yes.
You offload them like a smart person.
Listen, man, I played them. Somebody else can play them now.
I always say collectors are just organized hoarders.
We are. And organized is a very loose term when you look at how some of this shit is stored.
I mean, to be fair, like we all have our thing, you know, like mine might not be physical copies of video games, but I'm also sitting next to a shelf of hundreds of dollars of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle NECA figures. So, I mean, who am I to judge?
We all have that one thing where we kind of be like, why?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I just got the brand new Kino fig in the mail with his pizza delivery bike and everything. It's pretty sweet.
Nice.
Sick.
See, I got the problem with like, I just have an obsession with collecting all sorts of physical media. So I've just like fucking comics and manga and fucking CDs because I have no self-control sometimes.
That's how the collector's market gets you.
Yeah.
And the peer pressure makes it worse. Thanks, Ray. You know who you are. I just kind of called you out. Sorry. Anyway, let's move on to the plot and writing.
Sure.
Because we're beating ourselves up over collecting shit. We might as well talk about the story here. which is you are Popful Mail, a bounty hunter who is trying to catch the notorious Nutcracker. And, well, you can't catch Nutcracker because he is a very crafty nutcracker, cracking nuts, I guess. You go into town and you find out that there's another dude who can be captured by the name of Muttonhead, which is a fantastic name.
Really great.
And he is worth 2 million gold. So you set off to go and try to catch this dude, and zany antics abound. And that's really the plot of Popful Mail. It's just her trying to get rich.
Yep.
And then just stumbling into a bunch of other shit. Shane, what did you think of the plot and writing of Popful Mail?
I mean, so the interesting thing with this, I guess, right, is like our opinions of this are going to be colored by the artistic license that was taken by Working Designs, right, to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we're really only commenting on that, to which I would say I generally really like Working Designs translations. I know some people don't like them so much just because there's a lot of very like topical references they throw in that very much like peg the game at a particular era, but that's never really bothered me all that much. And I do think that the vast majority of the, translation decisions that they make kind of end up in some pretty witty dialogue. And so the same kind of goes here. I'm going to kind of front load this a little bit and we'll go into the details as we kind of move along. But suffice to say, I feel like I enjoy everything about this game except playing it. If that makes any sense. I love the writing. I love the voice acting. I love all of that. And just not so much actually the experience of playing the game. So I guess that's my commentary on the plot and stuff. Is the plot's whatever, but I really liked the writing.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you here. The writing is fantastic. The way that Working Designs wrote this game, how they translated it from the original Japanese version, which I have no idea what the original Japanese version said, by the way. It could not have been a serious game in Japan.
No.
Like there's no way. Absolutely not. I love the way Working Designs comedy works here. I think that out of all the Working Designs games I have played, the comedy lands the best here in Popful Mail by far. Like the characters are the most relatable. They come to life the most. I gotta say, Gaw, who is an actual dick dragon, he's a micro penis dragon. He is fantastic.
The chode dragon.
He is dude. He totally looks like I was playing this game and my wife came in. And I made a proto dick dragon way back in the day.
God,
I drew one, and Shane immediately knows what I'm talking
about.
Can we
just leave that buried, please?
I'll bury that. But if you just shrink that down and make it like a little round nub, that's Gaw, and Gaw is incredible. He even makes fun of French people, which that makes him my kindred spirit, because as you know, listeners of the show. I won't say I will say I have feelings about France. Maybe they're not justified, but I still said them and I stand by them. And Gaw also has those same feelings as demonstrated in a cutscene. So thank you, Gaw, for validating me. I now feel whole. But some of the humor in here, it just hits. It just lands. It's very like Saturday morning cartoon, but more Adult Swim. It just works. Like there's an adult angle to it. Very slapstick, and I love that, especially how it's accompanied by the animations that we'll talk to when we get to graphics. Like the character Slick, which isn't in your party because you have 3 characters in your party, which is Mail, Tat, and Gaw. Tat kind of sucks, but like you keep on running this character named Slick, and the animations, like just how dumb and unaware, like the complete lack of self-awareness that goes into the writing, just like your typical comedy relief anime character. It's perfect. And Working Designs captured that. And this game, the voice acting captured that. We'll talk about in sound. It's amazing. And I'm not going to go into the gameplay. We'll get there. As Shane said, there's plenty to talk about there. But the writing and the plot are fantastic.
Yeah, Slick's dialogue is great too. Like
it's so good.
That part where he gets stuck in the cave and then he's talking about like making the bombs. I mean, first of all, he's like, yeah, I found like this paper clip and some bat guano and this other thing, and I made a bomb. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then that whole like where he just does this like fourth wall break thing and does like an after school PSA about like not trying this at home. Like that went on for longer than I thought it was going to. And I was just sitting there I was just like, wow, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah. I don't know. And I'll kick it over here to you in a second, Bill, but I don't know why they went all dramatic in the intro. Because in the intro, they try to be really dramatic, like, 1,000 years ago, it does go into the final boss, but it's like, they sealed the Overlord, and it's a dwarf, an elf, and a human, and they did it really well, and they saved the land. And it doesn't really tie into anything outside of just kind of stumbling upon it, which, it is what it is. I mean, I guess you got to set it up.
Even in the intro, but even in the intro, it takes a pretty hard left turn real quick when you see Nutcracker and he's got this ridiculous Italian accent and then throws his head at somebody and explodes. You're just like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah. And of course, Mail's a big tittied leotard wearing elf girl, which is very anime.
Mm-hmm.
You ever seen the original PC 88 cover?
No.
It's her getting dressed. It's very Falcom.
Oh, God. Now I'm going to look this up afterwards and feel very ashamed of myself.
I was looking through the cover and I was like, what the fuck is this? And, that's Japan's cover. Okay.
Makes sense. So what did you think? What did you think, Bill?
I love the writing in this game. You'll find in this episode, I'm going to mention that I have like a very two-sided like opinion of working designs these days. And I will say the writing and like everything like about the story and how they portray, like localize this game is part of why I love working designs, and I still do to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything is so entertaining and happy. Like I love the characters. I love the way that they like portray them. Like the voice acting, especially it screams like early 90s like dub standards, but I love that shit. So it's like not a big problem to me, but like it's really well done. Like the voices are all very fitting to the characters. I love like how Mail just like throughout the entire game has just this like no fucks given attitude. Like she's just in it for money.
Yes.
She doesn't give a shit about what's going on.
That reminds me actually, while I was playing it on the TV in our living room, and like my wife kind of like walked by and there was, I don't remember the exact section, but oh no, I know what it was. It was when she was going to let, what was his name, out of the jail cell. Was that Slick again?
Muttonhead?
No.
Might be Slick. It's probably Slick.
I think it was Slick, and she was like basically extorting him, and my wife was just like, she's a bitch. And I was like, kinda, yeah, actually.
One of my favorite moments is like in like the first major boss, like it's when you first like really encounter a Tat. He won't go past because he can't beat the boss. So he's all like, hey, if you beat it for me, can you come back and like just let me know it's clear? And you, of course, after you finish the boss, you completely forget about that. So you just go to the next screen and he runs up and he's like, hey, you were supposed to tell me that like you passed.
She's like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, she doesn't give. I don't know if you can go back and actually let him know. I've never done it. I always just keep running.
So actually, I was curious about that too. And obviously I was playing this on emulation. So I had saved right before that boss battle. So I did that too, where I totally blanked about going back to talk to him. And then he did that whole thing. And I was like, I wonder. So I reloaded it. I did the boss battle again, and then I immediately backtracked, and there's an entirely different interaction that occurs.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll say this too, is that in terms of different interactions, there's a different conversation that every single character has with, an event.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all of them are bad guys, but whenever you have a cutscene where the character you're controlling starts talking, it will change depending on which character that you have. And this is why you never want to play as Tat, because his dialogue options are usually the least interesting. But Ga and Mail are just so wonderfully written, and they're such incredible characters, and they had me rolling for so many of the dialogue choices that, you don't choose it. It plays out as it will. But just what they say in these situations it's magnificent. I absolutely loved it. So if you do play this game, make sure to try to see the different options with the characters and what the conversations are with it too, because it's a delight. It's so good.
It's definitely like the reason why like working designs is so fondly remembered these days. It's this writing. Like this is like what they were like key for, that and their extravagant packaging for their games.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw in, since we were talking about like the different interactions and things like that. If you take a look at the manual that comes along with this version of the game for the Sega CD, there's a whole like page that Working Designs put in there about translation notes. And they talk about that like this was at the time, this was like basically one of the biggest conversions they'd ever done. And they weren't even sure that they were going to pull it off, because I think they ended up with something like 3 hours of audio with 39 different speaking parts. So yeah, if that gives you any idea. But yeah, pretty cool though.
On one CD, CD is incredible.
Super impressive too, because this was just coming off of like Lunar, which Lunar itself is incredibly impressive for the time.
This is where I think it's going to get quite a bit more contentious. The gameplay. So, Bill, you were talking about you have a dual-headed opinion now of Working Designs. We talked about that one good head. What's the other side? What's the dual-headed view from Bill Barber?
So I'm going to first say, I don't know how the hell I beat this game back in 2019 in one go. I don't know. I must have had more patience at the time. Yeah, this game is frustrating in a lot of ways, and a lot of it has to do with Working Designs likes to change shit in their games for no arbitrary reason other than to make it harder, I guess.
Yeah. So there's 3 characters. First of all, we should say there's 3 characters you can control, and they all control different. You have, as we already said, Male, Tat, and Ga. Male usually uses swords, but she also has ranged weapons like boomerangs, and some of her weapons can shoot ranged attacks. Ga is mostly a ranged attacker, but he does have close melee attacks. And then you have Tat, which has almost all ranged attacks. Male's the fastest one. What's Tat's advantage? That all his attacks are just ranged? Is that pretty much it? Because he's not as fast as Male.
I think so.
I rarely ever used him. So.
I'm pretty sure he also he has a base attack power that I think is higher than hers too.
Yeah, that goes away pretty quick though.
Yeah.
And Ga has the highest attack power and can jump the highest, but he moves the slowest. Ga's the best character. It's not even close, really. But you have 3 different styles of play you can do, and they all have their situations where they're best used, particularly for bosses. But one of the things Working Designs did in their infinite wisdom, this is what Bill is talking about, is that they raised the amount of damage that enemies do. So I was looking at some notes on this game. There are certain enemies that when you run into them, if you're playing the game normally, the enemy will do 5 damage to you. Now you have 100 hit points, and that the amount of hit points never changes. It's always going to be 100 hit points because you don't have levels. Everything's based off your equipment, but you can upgrade. So if you're playing this normally, there are enemies that will do 5 damage to you in the Japanese version. When Working Designs brought it over to North America, when they localized it, the same enemy did 45 damage.
Holy shit. I didn't realize they cranked it that high.
They cranked it that high. Not to mention the invincibility frames of animation is extremely short. You don't have a big window. So if you get hit, you can get into a cycle where you can get hit 3 or 4 times. Now, if you have 100 hit points and you're getting hit for 40, 45 hit points per hit, I mean, you do the math. It's
3 hits,
not
pretty much.
You're kind of fucked. I went through some forums because I had to think, like, this can't just be me. Maybe I just suck at this game. And I saw some other people were like, yeah, this game's really hard. Some people were like, oh, I don't remember it being very hard. And I can't verify this was actually Victor Ireland in these forums, but it said Victor Ireland and people are talking to him like he was Victor Ireland. Maybe just be a poser. Maybe I could be getting a lot of misinformation. I don't know. This is from like 10 years ago. And Victor Ireland went, yeah, we made a lot of changes. We were really proud of that. I don't remember raising the difficulty, though. Like, yeah, I don't think we did that. I don't remember that. I'm like, my dude, you damn near broke this game. It's not Exile Wicked Phenomenon levels of broken. Go look that up. I'm not going to explain it. It's another game Working Designs did for the Turbo CD. But it's brutal. And you can get around it if you buy enough fruit, which, by the way, Working Designs also increased the price of all the items to buy. So by 10 times. So, yeah.
You know, it's funny. You would send me the D Working Designs version of this game to play. after playing that, it completely ruined the Sega CD version that I have forever, because it's like, I played that version, I'm like, oh, this is actually really fun. And then I was like, the hell? It's ruined the original. Must have been blind to it when I first played it or something. I just didn't think about it.
Shane, did you even try playing? I know that you played the Unworking Designs version,
Sure did.
that ROM hack. Yep. Did you even try playing the original?
Hell no. Are you kidding me? I wasn't going to touch that. Like, that's why I listen. We've done enough on this show. We've touched enough Working Designs material that even I know now to immediately go and look for like the hack version to undo whatever insane thing they did. Nah, I if I was going to play this, I didn't want to voluntarily subject myself to what I think is really an inferior experience. Like I didn't. And the funny thing is I'm the one that said that I didn't even actually get through this whole thing. And I played it on like the way that it should have been played.
Yeah. And you know, the weird thing is too about this game is as difficult as it is. And you said, did you find it difficult? Was that the issue or is this more the controls?
Well, I mean, since we are in the gameplay section, I actually didn't find it difficult necessarily. I just found it frustrating and kind of tedious, which like I didn't expect. I was actually kind of disappointed. I'm not going to lie, because part of the reason that I suggested that we do this episode in the first place was because I looked at this thing and I was like, oh, holy crap. Like this is a 2D action side scroller with like RPG elements, and it's got a relatively short, like playtime, and it looks like it's fun. I like the art style. Like this should be a good time. That's why I picked it, because I was like, this looks like something I'm going to enjoy playing and then talking about on the show. And it ended up being, like I said a little while back, that I absolutely adore everything about this game except playing it, which is really weird. Oof. Because there's just a number of things, and they're small things, but they add up to the point where I put this down one evening after I was probably playing for like maybe an hour or two, and I just never picked it up again because I realized I had zero motivation to go back and like continue playing.
Ouch.
Which is a super bummer for me, because I really wanted to like this game, but there's a few things, and I don't want to monologue for too long here, but the short version is I absolutely hate the jumping because it feels way too floaty for a platformer. And that's sort of coupled with the getting bounced when you get hit mechanic. I have never liked that in any game, especially with like some of the verticality in these levels. You can get bounced by hitting something and you fall all the way to the bottom, and that is super frustrating. But actually the thing that really stopped me, the thing that made me think like, do I want to fire this up again and continue playing, was the amount of backtracking that you kind of end up having to do. It's really odd to me, and hopefully you two can enlighten me. And if I did something wrong, I will 100% go back and like continue playing this game after we record this episode. But I didn't see a way to teleport directly to a town, because this game has teleporting in that like you can just quick travel to another area that you've already been to on like the world map. But in order to get to any of the safe zones, any of the town areas, you still have to traverse the entire ass level to get back to it again. Was there something I missed there, or was that intended?
Bill, do you have an answer for this? Because I kind of do.
So I know the warp feature that he was mentioning is a little confusing, because like there's like two menus you kind of have to go through, because like there's like a certain like I noticed like when I was playing it, like if you click on one option, it'll take you to like the end of a stage, and then you click on the other, it'll take you before the stage, depending on which one you click.
Right.
I knew it was kind of frustrating. I just kind of would power through them at times because I'm a psychopath like that. So maybe you have a better answer.
Yes and no. First of all, I totally get what you're saying, because when you're trying to buy fruit, especially in the North American version, because you need to buy a ton of fruit, because you are going to take a shitload of damage. The best place to get it is later in the game with a town called Icicles, the ice town, obviously. And instead of going to the town that says Icicle, you have to go to a ship that's like Mount Sheba or something. I don't know. It's the thing after the town.
Mm.
And then you warp to that and you go into the back entrance of like the town level. And then it's just a really short traveling distance to get there. And then once you get to that point, it's pretty easy to stock up on items, especially getting ready for the final boss. This is where I'm going to have to also say, like, the bosses themselves, I don't think are particularly difficult. I think they're quite fun. It's just the amount of damage that is incurred when you're fighting them in the North American version. Because I think if you have enough fruit, because you can access your item menu at any time and be able to use the fruit, which is actually quite generous in how much it replenishes you, and you find quite a bit moving your way through. Plus, you have items that will automatically revive you if you die. So there's a lot of things that do make it generous, in addition to a very, very generous save feature.
Yes.
Where you can save right before the boss. So when you put all those things together, I didn't really find myself needing to go back to a town. And with that in mind, the only time I had to go back to it was at near the very end, at the very last town I needed to go to, which is extremely accessible if you know how to get to it.
I mean, I guess maybe that's me. That's maybe it's just me. Because like, so the thing that happened that caused me to kind of like put this down was I didn't even really get that far into the game, if I'm being 100% honest. But like, Tat joined my party. I was playing with him afterwards for a little bit. And I was like, my RPG instincts tingled. And I was like, oh, I should go to a town and see if they have gear available for him, because, you know, the menus are contextual in this game. So it depends on who you are using when you talk to an NPC, and also the shops. So I wanted to backtrack to the last town I had been to, which was like the treetop one or whatever.
Tree Sun.
Yeah, Tree Sun. And see if I could buy him gear, which, fun fact, they do have better gear for him at Tree Sun if you go back. And so like, I wanted to do that because I thought that would be the smart thing to do. And I ended up just doing a whole bunch of backtracking through the entire level to get back to the town. And if I'm being honest, I'm not even a huge fan of how the levels are laid out, because they're not even necessarily that big, but I don't know, they don't have a good flow to them, I found. And so like, trying to remember where to navigate to get back to a certain place just felt tedious to me. And so once I went back finally and bought the upgrades for him, I think they just had actually they had all three. Now that I think about it, I think they had a better like rod and robe and amulet, I think, or whatever it was, not an amulet, but the other accessory. Then I kind of started going back to where I had left off, and I didn't get much further than that. I don't know. There's something about that just kind of like really soured me. And I was just like, I lost all motivation. So I don't know.
Yeah. You mentioned how the levels are kind of oddly designed. This game kind of has like a Metroidvania-esque feel to it at times.
Mm-hmm.
The levels actually remind me a lot of, it's ironic, Sonic CD in a way, like where they're very vertically designed and not exactly left or right in a lot of ways. I think that,
especially the further you get. Yes.
Yeah. Where it's kind of more about like, you kind of have to just jump around and explore to find things. It's not really super direct and linear.
But it's not terrible. Like, you can actually get through this game without a guide if you really want to, especially if you're not getting hit for 50 damage per attack. That's the biggest thing that discouraged me from exploring, because these are designed to be explored and to look around and see what's there, because there's treasure and you want that treasure. But then when you're getting hit for 50 damage per attack, and if you get hit twice, you're going to lose an elixir or die, you're not going to want to romp around and explore.
Well,
it's very counterintuitive.
It is. And I mean, even without the ramped up damage, I think the other part that was a little bit of a detractor for me was just the respawning enemies. Like, I get it because you can farm them if you really want to, which also, that was maybe I didn't have to do this, but I kind of felt like the game was pushing you in that direction. Like right off the get, in the very first area, when you drop down into the first like elf town or whatever, you're kind of not so subtly told that you should probably just go and like grind for a bit in the first area to get enough money to like buy gear and shit. And I was just like, okay, like that. I'm gonna be honest, I was not expecting to be told to go grind money in an action platformer RPG, but here we are. And so I get why they're respawning, I guess, but also that was another thing that really just made the exploration feel laborious to me. Is like, it would be one thing if I had cleared the area and then I was able to, you know, poke around in all the corners and explore and all that stuff. But having to constantly be on guard for like, oh, this thing respawned for the 5th time while I'm trying to hop around here just gets really tiresome. And actually that dovetails into something else about the gameplay that irked me. I know I'm being like relentlessly negative here, but I don't necessarily mean to be. But did either of you notice how, and I really dislike it when games do this, but did either of you notice how the screen does not scroll horizontally until your character is further in that direction from center screen?
Yeah, it's a complaint I have for it.
Yeah, I hate that, because what ends up happening is that puts you too close to the screen edge to whichever direction you're going. And so you get surprised by enemies more often than not and take unnecessary damage, which for me was less of an issue because they were doing like 5 damage, or when I bought new gear, they were doing like 2. But I mean, for you, that had to have been painful.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was extremely painful. It was awful. Like, I would have to inch my way across the screen and either use Tat or Mail with a distance attack, or just use Gaw when he had a distance attack, and just periodically just fire a weapon just to make sure there wasn't an enemy hiding behind the screen, because they'll just pop up.
Yep.
And it sucks. Like, it's not good, especially when they're doing the amount of damage that we've been talking about. It kind of blows. Nothing's
worse than when you like jump over a pit right at the end of like a screen before it scrolls, and then you get immediately hit and knocked straight into the pit, into the spikes, and you're just like, oh, that's great.
Yep.
Serious Sonic 2 Metropolis Zone vibes.
Yeah.
And yes, I am not a fan of those fucking praying mantises. Oh. And it felt like that a lot in this game. There's a lot of that. I'll be, completely fair. Even though sounds like I enjoyed the gameplay here a lot more than you, Shane. Like, a lot more.
I think so.
It's not perfect. Yeah, I did. I think it was a good time. I think it controlled well. I think the characters controlled very well. I think jumping was fine. I didn't find it floaty. Especially when you get Gaw, who can jump higher and you have more control over where your jumps can go. I thought that was a lot better. Mail's a little too fast at times, especially in the ice levels.
I think that might be part of it, because like, and you can test this out. Like, anybody can go and take a look at this right off the get. Like, if you go with Mail and you walk up to an edge of a platform, you would expect, if you've been playing video games for more than 15 minutes, that like, when you walk off that edge, there's a certain sort of like physics that you expect to take action, to occur. And it doesn't. Like, she rockets herself off the edge. Even if you're inching up to the edge, she will do like this leap off almost at this like weird 45-degree angle. And it makes the platforming really weird, because you're going to end up launching yourself into things that you can't see, or into spikes or what have you, because it's not dropping in the way that like you would expect, like, say, you know, Mario, like a 2D Mario game. That's sort of like the gold standard we can use as sort of like the benchmark. Right. And like, it doesn't act that way at all. And I guess that's maybe what I meant by floaty. It's not so much floaty in that it's, I guess, it feels off. It's like imprecise in a weird way.
That's fair. What do you think, Bill?
Honestly, it's funny, like how we bring up like Mail is very fast, and then it immediately makes me think they wanted to make this a Sonic game. Like, that pops into my head immediately. You know, though, honestly, though, the way I looked at it was like, gameplay wise, I thought the gameplay was really good. I just thought the design around it was a little inconsistent throughout the experience. Like,
yes,
because I never had problems with the way it controlled. Like, I enjoyed like how everything felt. It was just playing through the levels, like there'd be just like really cheap design moments, or like just things that I'm like, that could have been better. That wasn't the best, or stuff like that.
Yo, I've got to ask you, if you beat it for this run, was it just me, or were the final bosses pushovers?
They were. Honestly, the boss fights are like the easiest part to me of this game. Because like once you figured out their pattern, it's basically you just got to memorize it and like they're simple. Yes. It's like the enemies are more annoying than the bosses, like in all honesty.
Well, these are the final bosses, and for the final boss, you are locked into one character per boss. Mm-hmm. That was the only ones, like the final bosses were the only ones with the exception of males, because there's a trick to hers. But even then, once you learn the trick, as you said, Bill, it's mindless. But every single one of them was just like mind-numbingly easy compared to everything that was before that. Especially there's this, do you remember the knight?
Yeah.
The one that keeps walking towards you and then you go to the stairs. I didn't use Gaw. I don't know why I didn't use Gaw, because that's essentially who you're supposed to use for almost every boss fight. But that thing just kept killing me over and over and over and over again, because it pushes you to the edge of the stairs. And then if you're male like I was, you can't hit him unless you like jump over a certain level of stairs. But if you do that, you get hit. And of course, he hits you for an absurd amount of damage because it's the North American Working Designs version. While you have these dials float above you, dropping bombs on you that do similar amounts of damage, it can become a very, very irritating fight. And I could not stand that boss fight. But then, yeah, the final boss with Gaw and Tat, especially Tat, you just sit there and you just like fire your wand and you hold up so it can go up into his weak spot. And then he disappears, comes back, does the same thing. And it's repeated tedium, but it's just that dynamic, that duality of just having these levels that are infuriatingly difficult at times mostly because of the changes that Working Designs made. Because I agree with Bill that this game controls, I think, really well. Shane, not so much, but I do like the way this game controls and plays. It's just some of that shit is just so unfair. But then you get to some of these bosses like, wow, if they wanted to make something more challenging, this probably would have been it, aside from the just damage total.
Yeah, I mean, like even like going back to like the first boss, like that you fight with male, like literally, like if you know what you're doing, you just got to stand in one spot and literally just every time it lands next to you, just use the sword and just like wait till it dies.
Yeah. Anything else? I think we've kind of nailed this gameplay down. We're not mailing this in, so to speak.
You will see the Game Over screen a lot.
I actually didn't.
Oh no.
Well, again, it comes back to the save states.
Oh, right.
Not the save states, but the generous save system, because you can save before every boss and then you can load like right there. It's so easy to do. And I actually did not have to use save states at all, because I will freely admit it. I don't care about using save states. Okay, I'm not done. This is where I'm going to bitch. Big bitch here. I started using save states when you started getting to points where you'd be talking to a bad guy and the dialogue is unskippable.
Yep.
And they would immediately throw you into a boss fight or a situation where you could not save. There's a situation where you get locked behind by this dude named Venuncio and you have to kill these little flame things. And hitting them is like way harder than it has any right to be. And if you don't kill them all within a certain amount of time, it's game over. But you can't save once you're done talking to him. And the only way you can load it is you have to load it right before you talk to him. And it's like a minute and a half of him talking that you can't skip through. And another one is, and by the way, amazing performance. We'll talk about this in sound. Sven Common, one of the best pieces of dialogue in the entire game. It's great, but he's going to do it every single time if you happen to fall to him. Which really blows. That's when I had to start breaking out the save states, because I was like, I don't want to hear him talk for the fucking 30th time. I just want to move on. I just want to see what's next.
I brought up the Game Over screen just because it's basically just an image of Male like laying on her butt, basically like knocked out, and she makes like has different quotes for like every time you see the Game Over screen. I was just going to comment, it was nice of them to give us different quotes every time, so it wasn't super repetitive.
Yeah, like Bubsy.
Great. I'm glad that you find a reason to bring that up.
Not quite that annoying, but
is it time to talk about how this game sounds so we can stop being divisive on this?
Sure.
Let's do it. Sound effects. Shane, you've been kind of quiet for the past couple minutes. What did you think about the game's sound design?
overall, it's great. I mean, I will say for the most part, the sound design as far as sound effects and that sort of thing they're fine. I don't think there's anything that really necessarily stood out to me. I think they're totally serviceable. I will say that even though I generally liked the soundtrack, at least of what I heard, and I know this is probably a technical limitation, particularly with the amount of dialogue, that recorded dialogue that's in this game. But I did kind of wish that there was a bit more variety with the music. I understand that they basically had the same backing track for what they consider a stage, but what they consider a stage is generally broken up into several like sub stages. And so my expectation, I guess, again, kind of driven from games like Super Mario World or something like that, was that each one of those points on the overworld map would have like their own unique track, and they don't. And so it gets kind of repetitive after a while. So it was nice to finally get to like the second like zone, because I could finally hear some different music. I suppose it's kind of a little bit of a nitpick, but the real standout here, as we've kind of mentioned a few times already, is absolutely the voice acting. It ranges from genuinely very good to it's kind of like ham-fisted, but in the best way possible. And I kind of love pretty much all of it. It's great. And there's something, and I don't know if it's just like a byproduct of the time in which this was recorded, or if it was just choices made on the voice artist's behalf. I'm not sure, but there's something about the delivery of the lines that feels very like real. And I don't know if that makes sense. A lot of the times I guess maybe now we're so used to very, very produced voiceover that you don't get things like mouth noises and, you know, like the grunts and things like that you would probably get from just talking to someone. And the performances that were delivered in this, a lot of them have that. And honestly, I think it adds to it. It adds this like very sort of personal touch to things that makes it just feel that much more real. And so I really appreciated that. Even just the changing of cadence of like when they're talking, like Slick. Like I love it when he does those little asides, because he talks a lot faster when it's like in a parenthetical, you know, where he's saying something just like, well, you know, you didn't save me, and I'm not saying you should, but you probably should. But anyway, and like, I just really liked that. I think it was very well done.
Go ahead, Bill.
Pretty much in terms of the voice acting, I'm pretty much just going to mirror everything Shane said. Like it's for like the 90s, like standards at the time, like where voice acting was very hit or miss. Like it's all very well done, especially coming from relatively unknown actors and actresses at the time. Cause I'm pretty sure Working Designs just used like randos they found at the time. And I will say for the soundtrack, it's weird. I don't think it's bad, but I don't find any of it memorable, if that makes sense. Like it's not like a Lunar game, or like I'm just talking Working Designs, like Lunar or like an Arc the Lad, where like I remember tons of tracks like from those games. Popful Mail, yeah, it's like I remember the main theme, like the title screen, but that's like about it, honestly. But like none of it was like offensive to the ears, if that makes sense. Yeah,
no, I can definitely see that. Also, one more thing for me to throw in before Chris puts his 2 cents in, but I just want a particularly special shout out to the voice artist for Muttonhead, because he did not have to go that hard, but he did it, and he did that for us.
Yeah, he did.
He's great. You know, it's interesting you bring that up about the voices, Shane, because now that I'm really thinking about it, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of live theater and or puppet shows. Like a lot of that overemphasis.
Yeah.
But not like way too much emphasis where it's like intentionally cheesy.
Right.
And it's right in that middle sweet spot where you can't say it's bad, but it has a certain quality, a je ne sais quoi, if you will, where it's just like it's perfect for what they're trying to do here. Like if this was a serious game, it would not work.
Oh, no,
at all.
No, not at all.
Like this is for pure comedy. That's why I kind of went to like a puppet show, that kind of direction.
Yeah.
But you're right in terms of the voices. And I don't think these were randos, Bill, because Ashley Angel was a character, which of course was Alex, who became a successful pop singer later in life.
Okay.
And I can't remember his name. It's the guy who did Galleon.
Yes.
He's in here. I wish, God, I'm going to type this up. Sorry for the click, Ashton.
Oh,
but I'm going to look this up.
So Mail was in Magic Knight Ray Earth and Lunar Silver Star Story Complete as well.
Yeah. Who's Galleon's voice actor? John Truitt.
Yes.
John Truitt was Galleon's voice actor, and he is the voice actor of Mumbles, who doesn't have a big spot. But they're taking a lot of the same voice actors that they had in the Lunar games that they would probably reapply over to Lunar 2. And I think the singer for the end credit song is the same singer that was there for Lunar 2 and some of the Lunar tracks. So, I mean, this is they're not exactly taking randos, but they're taking people from, I'm assuming, from within the studio, or people who were just locals, like, hey, like, we did this game last year. You want to come back and do another one? It's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, cool.
Well, I think what I meant by randos was they were like people that literally just did Working Designs games.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. Like, this is very, I don't want to say, is it incestuous? I don't know if that's the right word for it, but very rotating door policy when it came to the voice actors. And I think this is the best on the Sega CD, period. Out of the 4 games, I think they only did 4.
Yes.
On the Sega CD that they did. This is the best. It's the most appropriate, the most fitting. And I think Lunar 2's voice acting is fantastic. I think it's better here, a lot better. Now, in terms of the music, I like the majority of the music. I think it's really good. But where it really shines is the mine level, where I could really tell this was made by Falcom's JDK team. It sounds something right out of East. It sounds great. It has that high tempo, kind of more rock feeling to it. I also really like the ice stage, but Shane is 100% correct in that those themes get really tired really quick, because you're spending an hour in each one of these levels, and that theme does not change until you get to the next level. And it can get really irritating. And just a little bit more variety, maybe a second theme, they could swap it up in each area. That would have been greatly appreciated, because it just got to the point where, like, I really like this song, but I'm not enjoying this anymore.
Yeah.
I hate this. And you don't want to put on a podcast or something, or put something else on in the background. And that's because the voice acting is so good, and you never know when you're going to encounter voice acting. So you don't want to be like, turn it down, turn it up, turn it down, turn it up. So you're always inclined to keep the volume up, because the interactions are just so enjoyable. But you do have to kind of grit through that music unless you're grinding for gold. Overall, like, the sound design is very good. The sounds themselves, if I'm not going to complain about it, that they're fine. I'm not going to sit here and say they're great or bad. I didn't pay that much attention to them, which means, yeah, serviceable. But overall, I think the sound direction in this game is phenomenal. Just a little bit more variety on the music tracks themselves, and it's close to perfect.
Yeah, and I like your take on it, actually, because it made me think about it, and I feel like that's the perfect comparison, perfect comparison to it is like, this is like watching a particularly well done community theater production. That's what it feels like.
Yes. So apt. All right. So before we wrap this episode up, we don't have any miscellaneous information, because I think we covered most of it before heading into what we normally call our miscellaneous section. So we're going to roll right into our Patreon pontifications. And if you want your pontification read, it's an easy 3-step process. 1, head over to our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Every patron can participate in this. 2, join our Discord. Anyone can join our Discord, even if you're not a patron. And 3, there's a section called Patreon Pontifications, where you can give your thoughts for an upcoming episode. And we have one thought this week. Just one, for Popful Mail. I almost want to call bullshit and see if Randall had actually played this game. I hope he did. I would love to know if he did, because I would love to know that. I want him to play this. But Rowdy Randall says, Popful Mail's playful protagonist packs a powerful punch, providing players with a perfectly pleasurable and positively captivating gaming experience. Thank you, Randall. I think you just wanted to put alliteration in there. But if you did actually play this, I want to know, because this is a game that I did not think you would have played. But thank you, Randall.
I also think that this is indicative of, I guess, how obscure this game kind of is, in that this is the first time since we've been doing the patron pontifications that we have had literally no one else have any input on it whatsoever. Just
one.
Randall.
And if he didn't put it, that would have been a very awkward segment.
Yeah. They're like, well, nobody thinks anything about this. So there you have it.
It's funny, like this
obscurity.
This is like even like Falcom games are kind of obscure to begin with. Just, I mean, not until recently, they've always been kind of like, other than maybe Yeast, like most people really didn't know about them. This is like the obscure game for Falcom standards.
Yes.
Oh, I fear for our download numbers. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure it'll be fine. I just gotta, you know what I gotta do? I just need to use the Japanese cover art for our cover art, and we'll be good to go. I looked that up after you mentioned it, and you are not joking.
Yeah,
it's basically just Tat getting an eye full of down blouse. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Come on, weebs, come look at some anime porn.
That's right. Who ordered all these anime titties?
Me.
Oh, well, here you go.
And our listeners. So now is the time when we are going to bring this show to a close. And as tradition states, myself and Shane will go first before our guest, Bill, has the final word on whether or not this game holds up today. I think this might be a sandwich, Shane. I have a feeling where you're going to go on this. So I'm going to start out with the power of positivity. A lot of P alliteration today. And I am going to say, yes, this game holds up today. Giant asterisk, humongous, which is go to, I'm not going to say the website because I'm not sure of the legalities and what is frowned upon or not. But go to a website where you can find Sega CD games and look for something called the Unworking Designs version and download that and play that version. Do not play the original version, because unless you have a lot of disposable income, I know you sure as shit ain't going to buy this game. I know how you playing it, you dirty pirates, because that's how I played it. Okay? Yar. Go find the one called Unworking Designs. And it's a fun game. Just play it straight. You are going to have to grind a little bit towards the end, I would imagine, because I played the original and I made my way through somehow. Just know this: buy a lot of fruit. Don't be afraid to use it. Fruit will recover your health, and you will have an enjoyable time, especially once you get Gaw. Gaw makes the entire game so much better. And then a little bit after that, the gameplay opens up even more. It becomes a very enjoyable experience. So I will say it does hold up today. Do not play the original. Download the other version. Again, I know you're not buying it. And play that one. How about you, Shane?
So I know that you're expecting me to say that it doesn't hold up today. And I am inclined to say exactly that. But the thing is like I said earlier, I really wanted to like this game, and I think it has a lot going for it. It really does. We didn't even talk too much about it, but fully animated like cutscenes are great. It's basically like watching a 90s anime, which is fantastic. The voice work, as we said, is great. There's everything about this is really well done. Like I said, there was something about the gameplay that just didn't really click with me, and I feel like it really should have. And you know what? Maybe it requires, a second take. Like maybe I need to give it another chance and just force myself to fire it back up and just push through. And maybe I'll find that I actually like it more than I think. But there's just all of these like very little minor things that's, like I said, tend to add up to make it less fun of an experience than I was really wanting it to be. Is it something that, assuming you're going to go and get the correct version of it and play it, because don't subject yourself to the actual Sega CD version. Nobody's got time for that, except for, I guess, the people on this show. But that's why we're here. But yeah, I mean, I still think it's worth your time. Like, if for nothing else, to at least experience something that, like we said, is actually really not that well known and probably does deserve a little bit more attention. Just know going into it that even with the proper difficulty, like, there's probably still going to be some things, some design decisions that kind of make you scratch your head a little bit. And there will be some times where it actually feels a little bit like a slog, even though it probably shouldn't, especially for like a 6-hour game. But I do actually think that there's enough there to be worthwhile. So I give it a yes, with like all of those caveats attached.
All right. Thank you, Shane. Bill, do you think this game holds up?
Aside from like the obvious, like, working designs changes and the near impossible nature of finding a copy of this game, I do believe this game has actually held up incredibly well over the years, like in terms of gameplay, like graphics, design, like music, all sorts of that stuff. Like, it is an absolute joy to play if you can get past some 90s frustrating design choices and some somewhat repetitive features in the game. But other than that, though, it's like it's one of those games that really made me appreciate that the Sega CD really was more than just the herder full motion video machine that a lot of people seem to think it is. And honestly, it's one of those games that, like, I feel like needs to be more like shown to the world, just because it's such an obscure game that literally no one seems to know exists.
All right. Thank you, Bill. There you go. You got the sandwich of positivity. You got a little bit of shit in the middle, but not too bad. Shane did do the light recommendation, yes. But hey, Popful Mail gets the thumbs up, the golden recommendation from Retro Hangover, which we normally don't really give anyway. It's just kind of there. But Shane, why don't you close this out, because we don't want to forget that, like we did the graphics.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Also, the graphics are pretty good. This game's good to look at. There you go. Good. We covered it.
They're Boom. Great. Yeah, nice parallax scrolling.
Yep. It's also funny because that's actually, I think, the first time in the history of the show where we've literally forgot an entire section. So I guess there's a first time for everything. But as we usually do, first and foremost, we of course want to thank our most esteemed guest. So Bill, thanks for jumping on the show again. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks for stopping by.
And I mean, we've already talked about it, and I would suspect that there's quite a bit of in the Venn diagram of podcasts. I think there's a lot of central area there between the two of us. But in case, maybe somebody doesn't know, what is it that you do out there on the internet, and how can they find you?
I am currently the host of 2 podcasts. I am the host. My main podcast is the Gaming Collecting Podcast I do with my sister, Alex. It's a gaming and anime-based nostalgia podcast where we talk about a whole bunch of stuff from our childhood and some modern topics every now and then. As for my other podcast, which just recently restarted, I have the 3DO Experience, which is a retrospective podcast where me and my co-host Thrak talk about basically the 3DO console, the games, like the company behind it, and everything in between. And that releases weekly as well.
Fantastic.
And you can find all my links at linktree/the Barber Games.
Awesome. And speaking of link trees, all the cool kids have one of those, as I've been told, definitely. And not that it's some weird dated thing for boomers or whatever, but we've got one too. So, hey, you know how Chris mentioned that thing about the Patreon and the pontifications? Well, that, along with our merch store and our socials and our YouTube channel and all that good stuff. And, I guess this show also, if you didn't already find it, because you're literally listening to me right now. But in case you want a really easy way to get there, that's where you're going to find it. So head on over to linktree/retro hangover. It's linktr.ee/retro hangover. And you will find all of those fancy buttons for you to tap and or click, depending on, how you're pulling that thing up. And there's one other thing there, and it's not our main deal, but we've become kind of regulars over there, and that happens to be Twitch. So Chris, when can people find us at the Twitch television?
Well, you can see us over at twitch.tv/retro hangover with the beautiful parallax scrolling, big chunky characters and beautiful animated cutscenes at twitch.tv/retro hangover at Sundays at 9 p.m.
Eastern Time. Some of these sprites are just big and beautiful that you can't find anywhere else on the Sega Genesis with fluid animation. And those are great people there talking about that over there at twitch.tv/retro hangover Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a gorgeous looking time over there, Shane. So back to you.
Thank you, Chris. That's tremendous. All right. Well, I suppose with all of that being said, until next time.
Play with your... It makes French people look normal. Joysticks.
Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.